panorama of speed, color, drama, and excitement. The American Sports Cavalcade.
Ah, the good life. I guess we've all fantasized from time to time about getting away from the hectic pace and maybe getting ourselves a little acreage out in the country. A few acres of corn and maybe a few cows in the barn. Well, farmers may think the other way around. They may think about a time when they can get away from all this peace and quiet, get a little action. Hi, I'm Brock Yates. Today, we're in Fort Recovery, Ohio. And if it's action on the farm you're looking for, wait till you see this.
Brock tractor pulling is just a totally unique form of motorsports. You won't hear a lot of talk around about aerodynamics because, after all, how much wind do you push at 30 miles an hour? And exotic materials, forget it. There's not a lot of carbon fiber, Kevlar, or titanium here, just iron and steel. But don't sell these guys short on engineering. Take a look at the tractor they call Mission Impossible. Literally every piece of this machine was hand-built by Tim Engler of Princeton, Indiana. It features a race car-style space tube frame construction and as many as 5 Mammoth 550 cubic inch Arius engines. Now, Tim was the first to mount the engines crosswise like this. The challenge was how to get all this power to the rear axle in this configuration. I mean, you've got engines coming in from 3 different directions. Well, that's the heart of this machine. This gearbox here with 3 input shafts and just a whole bunch of ring gears. So I'll tell you, if power is your passion, stick with us today. You're going to like this show.
Well, Steve, all that mechanical complication goes into solving a relatively simple problem. That is pulling about 30 tons of weight down a 300-foot strip here at Fort Recovery. But there's a hooker in the deal, a special sled designed to make that haul extremely complicated. Earlier, Steve had a look.
You don't just hook any old hunk of junk up to one of these high-powered pullers. If the sled ever got loose, well, I don't even want to think about that. NTPA makes sure that doesn't happen with a very strict set of standards for their construction. Now, this is Lloyd Lutke's brand new Eliminator 3, and of course, this is the all-important weight box. Now, these iron ingots can be stacked in here to where the sled would reach a total weight of about 60,000 pounds. But it's not just sheer weight that makes these things work. This box comes down that ramp at a controlled speed, making the sled progressively harder to pull, and that is done through a series of transmissions. Now, something new on Eliminator 3 are these airbags off of a semi-trailer. Lloyd, from the cockpit, can control the weight of the pan itself. He can make the sled quite light for the lower classes. Now, Lloyd also rides on board Eliminator 3 for some very important reasons. Let me give you a look here. First of all, through a series of lights mounted up here, he can tell the starter when the sled is prepared and ready. If the red lights are on, the starter just waits until they're turned off. Now, right here, these knobs and levers, these control the air pressure in those bags. Now, also, using these, he can pick the pan up off of the dirt so the sled can come back under its own power, making it a lot easier to come back. It is self-powered with a Ford V8 engine located over here. Now, they steer the sled the same way the tractor pullers steer the tractors, and that's with independent rear brakes. Left here, right here. Now, this is just forward or reverse on the sled. The most important device here in the cockpit is this lever right here. That's the oh my God lever. If anything goes wrong, it shuts down the movement of the box, it breaks the wheels on the sled, it disconnects the ignition on the tractor with that dead man control, and if you can pull it then, you could pull Mount Rushmore.
Well, Steve, as they say, the best laid plans. That's Ray working on Eliminator. It looks as if Eliminator has eliminated itself. Some mechanical failures have put it on the sidelines, and they brought in a replacement. They call it Heartbreaker 2. Now, we've seen this sled before in other shows at Bowling Green, Ohio, and as I recall, Steve, she's dragged down a lot of hopes of some pretty serious tractors.
In fact, the motto of the guys that operate this particular weight transfer machine, Brock, is, you know we're going to get you.
Sooner or later, well, we are going to see Tim Engler in Mission Impossible, the tractor that we opened the show with, come to the line first. Now, Tim is an engineer, a man who fabricates a lot of these tractor chassis for other competitors. And this is, as you said earlier, one of the most sophisticated tractors you're going to find anywhere.
Now, these are Arius power plants, over 550 cubic inches apiece. He's running 4 of them in this configuration on alcohol fuel. Now, the Arius engine is built in Southern California, Brock, and as you know, it's really only caught on in 2 arenas of motorsports. drag boat racing and tractor pulling. That's really about the only places you'll find that engine.
These engines, of course, are not tuned like a drag racing engine. They're built for low-end torque specifically. So Tim would not rev these engines quite as high as you'd see in, say, an alcohol dragster, but the monster torque that these big engines produce will be the payoff. That, and if he can get all that power to the ground, traction, of course, is critically important here.
And these things are more of a challenge to drive than you might imagine. The biggest challenge being to reel out that horsepower in even doses and to keep the tires spinning, but not overly so.
Okay, the track is clear. The clutch comes out, and Tim makes his move. Feeding power slowly to that giant collection of motors. And here he comes. It looks as if he's going to do it.
He's going to take it right out the back door, Brock. That's what they call a full pull. And the impressive part of that run is how well balanced that tractor was. The front wheels just dangling, just kind of grazing the dirt as they're supposed to do. That was perfect.
Beautiful. It looked as if he could haul that thing all the way to Dayton if he just kept going. You'll see the chassis flex as he comes at us here. Notice the tractor gets a little bit sideways, begins to correct both with the steering wheel and with the rear brakes. So Tim Engler fulfills the dream of all pullers to go the distance, and Steve is with him.
Well, we just saw our first full pull of the class, all 300 feet. Tim Engler out the back door, as they say. But at Tim, it looked like it wasn't that easy to do.
No, it wasn't. We was having a torque problem with the tractor wanting to lift on this right side, and I kept hitting the right brake even though it was wanting to go to the right. It was a decent run because it really never lifted up and the motors came up RPM-wise, so we feel fairly good about it, although I think we'll see some more full pulls.
I agree with you. So the chassis is twisting? Is that what's happening?
Well, we want it to twist, but yet we're having a problem trying to keep both back tires flat on the track. That's one reason we went to the cross-mount motors. But it's just not working quite as good on the new chassis we built as the other one. We've got this chassis a little bit too flexible for a long track. It's more of an indoor chassis for a shorter track.
Well, I think we'll see again and undoubtedly a pull-off.
Sure, we'll look forward to it. Thank you.
So the first man in the 7200 modified class, Tim Engler, goes the distance here at Fort Recovery. And we'll be back with more National Tractor Pulling Association Grand National Competition after this.
Action today is Fort Recovery State Memorial. 2 reconstructed blockhouses with connecting stockades, and very typical of the kind of forts that were built east of the Mississippi in the late 1790s as protection against the Indians. A general by the name of Mad Anthony Wayne had the original fort constructed in response to the battle earlier that wiped out the troops of General Arthur St. Clair. And with this fortification, Wayne's troops soundly defeated the Indians in 1793, and that's where this area got its name, Fort Recovery.
Well, Steve, our next competitor is Dave Walsh out of Boston, Wisconsin, with the Irish Challenger. Unlike Tim Engler, he only has 3 Arias V8s on board.
And I would think, Brock, he's going to have to work his engines a good deal harder to get the same result. Another nicely balanced tractor, straight and true down this course, but I don't think he's going to take it out.
Oh, he's starting to bog down there, and no, he does not do it. 245.2 feet. That, of course, well short of the 300 feet that we saw Tim Engler run here on the first pass. So that'll put Dave Walsh out of the competition as we go to Wayne Garrett out of West Alexandria, Ohio, and he will carry 3 427 cubic inch Chevrolet engines on board Triple Chaos.
You know, Brock, when we first started covering tractor pulls some years back, you hardly ever saw a driver even with a helmet on. But these guys and the NTPA have gotten very safety conscious. You'll notice they're even wearing driving suits, flame retardant suits, and helmets, and even roll bars in some of the tractors we'll see later.
That's right. Well, these things, if they ever get loose, can be mighty dangerous. An awful lot of weight and an awful lot of horsepower unleashed in these machines. And as we watch Wayne Garrett back up to the old Heartbreaker 2, you can see the massive tires on the back of that machine. That, of course, is the key to traction. That, coupled with those 3 Chevrolet engines, are the key to getting Wayne down this 300-foot track here at Fort Recovery.
And look at how these engines are mounted, Brock. 2 of them, the front 2 are crank to crank. They are through 1 set of clutches, and then the rear motor is yet another clutch. Interesting combination of engines.
Feeding power steadily as he heads down the track. Wayne Garrett. Down, getting a little bit sideways. The tractor beginning to wobble and angle itself forward, and now bogging down. And that's it for Wayne Garrett. That will be a short pass, 230.5 feet. Not anywhere near
the distance that we saw Tim Engler go, and in fact not as much as the 245 feet of Dave Walsh earlier. Here's Jim Walsh out of Linden Station, Wisconsin. Dave's brother getting ready to go in the Foolish Flyer. And now let's go to Steve with Wayne Garrett.
Well, what you see coming out of the rear motor on Wayne Garrett's tractor is what racers often refer to as death smoke. And that can only be caused by something going awry internally. It is really popping and crackling here, oil running out of every pore. I'm afraid you heard it this time.
Yeah, I believe so. I think we blowed some head gaskets in. I hope it didn't go any deper than that. I'm not too sure.
Well, the RPMs were way up early.
I come out and hold just a little bit using the clutch kind of slow, but it got a hold of me a little bit, and so I just went ahead and nailed it down. And I think I might have went a little hard on that back motor, so I ain't too sure.
What's that tachometer say there? How many RPMs did we hit on that? A little over 7,000?
7. It was probably cranking at least 7 there, or a little harder than that, probably.
I could have maybe used a little higher gear, huh?
Yeah, I believe I could have hit a little higher gear that time. We thought maybe the track would get a little better bite than that, but it wasn't quite as wet as we thought it was.
Let's hope it's not too bad when you do the post-mortem.
I hope so, too. Thank you.
So as they clear Wayne Garrett's tractor off the course, we're going to go back to more 7,200-pound modified action. They are hooking up Jim Walsh's Foolish Flyer. Now, that's an interesting old machine. Carries an Allison aircraft engine, twin turbocharged, fuel injected. And really, Steve, this was one of the original power plants when they got going with the big modified tractors.
That's right, and this Allison engine is far different than it was in the days of the Mustang fighter blade. Then it had a crank-driven supercharger. Now it's twin turbos, and is it going to be enough power to take it 300 feet? Here comes the weight transfer box, and up come the front wheels. Not enough weight on the front end of this machine. He missed the balance, Brock.
He sure did. You could see him jockeying with the rear brakes, trying to keep that thing straight, but it hauls him down at 242.8 feet. So both the Walsh brothers not too successful here today. And now John Carlton, one of the real veterans in this kind of sport, getting ready to go in the Virginia Farmer. And let's go to Steve.
Well, Jim, at 242.8, not a distance record, but you might have set an altitude record.
Yeah, I think so. A little light up front.
When it gets that high in the air, is there anything you can do to try to settle it down other than getting off the power?
Pretty much just try and run it straight down the tracks is the best thing you can do at that point.
Well, with a single Allison, you're in pretty tough in this class anyway, aren't you?
I'm outpowered by quite a bit. I can just pretty much run a straight good pull, and that's the best I can hope for.
Well, thanks for a great show.
Oh, thank you.
Well, you can see how critical weight transfer and weight adjustment is on these tractors. Not enough weight on the front end. You fly the front wheels, and all of a sudden, the traction goes away. So we'll see if John Carlton has the balance right on the Virginia Farmer. A tractor powered by 3 modified Rodeck supercharged engines, Steve.
And Brock, you'll notice there's not a lot of those lead weights on the front axle of this tractor because John Carlton likes to run the front end a little bit light, intentionally wheel standing to try to get more weight transfer.
A different philosophy entirely, as you saw earlier, with the only full pull by Tim Engler. That tractor stayed almost dead level the entire 300 feet. So we'll see how John Carlton approaches his assault here on the Fort Recovery 300. As it worked, here he comes, backing up to, remember, Heartbreaker 2 has put away 3 out of our 4 contestants so far.
You know, this is a 7,200-pound modified class. In most forms of motorsports competition, that would be a minimum weight. Well, in this particular sport, that's a maximum weight because weight is an advantage. If you went to the line in this class at 7,600 pounds and you had the weight over the rear axle, you would be more competitive. It's just reverse of everything we're used to, Brock.
Well, yeah, it sure is. And I'll tell you what, John is carrying a little advantage himself. He's a mighty big man as he gets on the throttle and down the track he comes. This is the Virginia Farmer trying for it, coming at the flags. Can he do it? Oh, so close. There's the checkered flag. You can see that Carlton hauled up matter of feet short of a full pull. It being not the tractor, but the sled that has to cross the line. 293.7 feet for John Carlton. Let's have another look. As you can see, Carlton's front wheels never did get the altitude that he hoped for, so the weight transfer did not work for John Carlton, so he hauls up short by about 6 feet. Let's go to Steve with John.
Well, I tell you, John, everybody was pulling for you those last few feet, but just not quite enough, huh?
Yeah, it won't quite enough to get that, but a matter of good pull, I think.
You know, when you get that close, are you saying anything to yourself? Come on, baby, what are you doing?
Yeah, you kind of want to get to 2 or 3 feet.
A little body English, maybe.
Right.
Okay, but a good effort. It might make you some money.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, we got a bunch more competitors here in 7200 modified. The next one up, Leo K in a tractor called the Driller out of Lewis Run, Pennsylvania. Now, this tractor used to belong to the famous Ronnie Reed, one of the best in this business, and now Leo is going to have a shot at it.
And Leo is new to the controls of a modified tractor, Buck. He's won a couple of NTPA championships in the 2-wheel drive class, the trucks and the funny car-like machines, but this is a totally different style of driving here.
It sure is, Steve. He's got to handle the horsepower being generated by 3 500 cubic inch supercharged Arius engines. Here he goes.
And so far, everything is working perfectly. The real test, though, is when that box comes forward, as it's doing right now. A few control problems for Leo K, but he uses the brakes beautifully and takes it out the back door. So that will set up a pull-off later today with Tim Engler and Leo K at least. In fact, any driver who pulls the distance will meet in the pull-off with a heavier sled to determine the class champion. We'll be back at Fort Recovery with more of this muscle-bound competition right after this.
I think we lost the blower belt again, though, but...
I think so. Did the tractor come with any of Ronnie's continued assistance?
Yeah, we call him about every other day.
Well, I'll tell you what, if you like tractor pulling and any other kind of high-performance machinery, you know that this man, Art Arfons, will show up with some wild stuff. You want weird? Take a look at this.
Anytime you see this pretty shade of green, there's a good chance you're looking at a machine built by the famed Art Arfons. All of his jet-powered racers over the years have been called green monsters. First on the drag strips, later on the Bonneville salt flats. Well, now Art has gone tractor pulling, and again, he's using jet power. Well, turbines, really. There's a pair of them out of Sikorsky helicopters. Now, just to start these engines, Art uses a 1,000cc Kawasaki motorcycle engine. It also powers the machine around in the pits and up to the starting line. Now, he's using all of the gauges that a helicopter pilot would have to refer to, and there is no clutch or transmission in this car. The only way you can restrain it at the starting line is with brakes. There are 4 brakes on the rear wheels and also a disc brake on the drive shaft. Now, the downside of building one of these tractors, these engines cost $1 million a piece. Now, Art doesn't have quite that kind of money, so he went to a salvage yard, got 16 engines, and managed to scrounge enough parts to put 2 together.
Art, always famous for making junk work in a very exotic way. One of the wildest men of all in motorsports and one of the great innovators. Getting ready to go, Art Arfons. Look at that fire out of those 2 turbines, Steve.
But the secret to a good pull is the balance of the machine. Let's keep an eye on the front end. It comes up a little sooner maybe than it should. The tractor pulling to the left. Art is fighting for control here. That's going to cost him some momentum. He is not going to get a full pull out of this.
Very close, but not enough. At 286.7 feet, Art Arfons draws up short. As you can see, the end of that sled well shy of the 300-foot mark. And now let's go to our next competitor, John Heilman, Rockford, Ohio. One of the great names in this sport. Has been both the Mechanic of the Year and Driver of the Year. He'll be on board Old Red, a 3-engine Rodak machine that may be one of the real factors here today.
Well, here comes Art with his motorcycle engine purring behind him. You know, it didn't appear to be equal flame out of the motors. Does that mean anything?
Well, I meant one was pulling more than the other one.
Which is not good.
Well, it could be and couldn't be. I think I missed my tire pressure quite a bit.
You would have had more or less tire pressure?
Well, the boys tell me I've been running too light on the tires.
Well, you were really cutting it close on that outside line, too.
Well, I seen what I was doing. I wasn't going to go out of bounds.
We enjoyed the show immensely. Thank you.
It's been great being here.
What a competitor, what a colorful man. Went over 600 miles an hour in a home-built jet car back at the Bonneville Salt Flats in the 1960s. As we watch John Heilman in Old Red backing in for the hookup to the sled. We've got a highly interested observer for this particular run, and Steve is with her.
Brock, I'm with Ann Heilman and her husband just now backing up to the sled. How do you feel about today, the track? How does John feel?
Well, I think he feels real confident with the tractor. I feel kind of skeptical because the track is tough, tough, tough.
Tough in what way, Ann? Loose, too tight, what?
I don't know whether you call it too tight, but it's taking so much horsepower. I noticed that a lot of the tractors are just barely turning their gear.
So John probably has a pretty low gear going for him here.
He has our one and only normal 7 gear.
Which is about the lowest in the truck.
Yes.
All right, here he comes.
What do you think?
Pick it up. It should come up. It's pulling down the gear.
Looks good.
Oh, my.
I think he made it, didn't he?
It seems like every time I talk to you, it's a question, did he make it?
Well, Brock, did he make it or not?
He sure did, Steve. A full pull for John Heilman. Third man today to go into the pull-off, along with Tim Engler and Leo Kay. Let's take another look. You can see the tractor nice and level. A good pull will seem to the tractor almost takes a little hop skip, just riding nice and level down that track. But John gets a little off course and gets just into the coffin corner for his full pull.
Well, John, I was with Annie over here watching that pull, and I think she willed you the last couple of feet.
Yes, with help like that down here, how can you miss? I had my doubts about 10 feet back, but old Red just didn't want to give up.
Lance said this track is tough.
Yes, it's very tough. It held my RPMs down. I probably should have came just a little bit harder to the starting line, but that's what we did, and at least we got it out the first time around.
Well, you're going to get another crack at this track in the pull-off.
I sure hope we can do good.
Well, John Heilman has the odds with him, really, if his record means anything. 4 NTPA national championships on his record. A brilliant, brilliant puller as he walks off track to have a little chat with Ann and do a little post-mortem on that particular pull. Not maybe one of the best ever for him because he barely made that full pull to go into the pull-off.
Well, talk about famous, Brock. This has got to be the best-known team in all of tractor pulling, the Banter brothers. That is Ralph on the ground and his brother Dave in the seat, and I think they've got a problem with one of these 4 Chevrolets. Apparently, they cannot keep the tractor running. The two brothers conferring here, but it'll be up to Ralph to make whatever adjustment is necessary. We'll be back with more pulling and hopefully the Banter brothers. Stay with us.
This is Bear's Mill, just outside Fort Recovery, built in 1849 by the Bear family, believe it or not. Originally, it was a water wheel-powered conventional mill, but in the 1860s, it was converted to a turbine, an early form of turbine. Today, that turbine still generates its own electricity and also a supply of stone ground flour for the locals. An interesting historical site right down the road from the pullers.
And Brock, here at Ambassador Park in Fort Recovery, we have seen 3 drivers so far drag the sled the full 100 yards. Tim Engler, Leo Kay, and John Heilman. But there's plenty of competition still in line hoping to join that elite group, including this rookie on the tour, Todd Stone from Middlebury, Vermont. And this is a twin Allison-powered tractor. Just an awesome machine.
Sure is, Steve. And the name, how about this? Loud, tough, and lethal. That's what Todd calls this machine. And he's done very, very well. His dad, a veteran puller. And Todd on his way, some people say, maybe the Rookie of the Year in NTPA competition.
It would be so much easier, Brock, to build a more conventional tractor with the Arius or the Rodex or the Chevrolets. To run an Allison machine, you've just got to love that particular power plant. Bear in mind, they are over 40 years old. And if you want spare parts, well, you've just got to make them yourself.
Right. The guys in, of course, in unlimited hydroplane racing and in tractor pulling, about the only source of parts for these veteran engines. V12 supercharged engines on Todd Stone's tractor, a pair of them side by side. They were, as we said earlier, the base engine, as it were, for early pulling, now replaced by the more advanced V8s.
Now Todd just eases into the throttle. The turbo boost starts to come up on the Allison, and he has got a good pull going. The front end coming up, it may be a little light on the front end. And off to the left he goes. He has to get off the throttle to keep from fouling, and it will not make the pull-off. 291.5 feet.
Good effort, though, by the young man from Vermont. Now, you saw how critical the weight transfer was on these particular machines. It is not a question of raw horsepower. All these machines have sufficient horsepower to pull that sled down the track. But it's a question of what percentage of that power is actually applied to the rear wheels. Earlier, Steve took a look at at the sophistication of weight transfer.
You're going to hear a lot of talk today about weight and about balance, both of which are as important to a successful pull as horsepower itself. Now, this is the twin-engine Allison machine driven by Todd Stone. And Todd says that a perfect pull with this tractor would find the front tires just kind of grazing the dirt the first 100 feet. Then it should stand up about a foot and stay that way for weight transfer where you need it as the sled becomes progressively heavier. Now, the most popular way of weighting these tractors is what they call suitcase weights, and they weigh 100 pounds apiece. You get a lot of exercise in this sport, I can tell you that. Hang one up here, you've got 100 pounds in the front end. Take one of those and hang it on the back, you've got 100 pounds over the rear axle, and also you've taken 10 pounds off of the front end because of the leverage involved. You'll also find these suitcase weights on some of the tractors on the side, just ahead of the rear tires, and also you'll find wheel weights on Todd's tractor here, and that is reciprocating weight, so it acts as kind of a flywheel effect as you're going down the course. But Todd's got another trick in this tractor that I just love. These great big Allison engines can be slid in the chassis. Now, that has nothing to do with static weight, but for balance and changing track conditions, that is really a unique feature. You can just put more weight on the front end or take it off by shifting the engines without adding any weight at all.
A fascinating science, and believe me, one that nobody has yet quite figured out. As you'll see, some of the veterans like Gardner Stone, who is Todd's father, has worked in this sport for years and years, and he'll confess that he still hasn't worked it all out.
And I'll tell you, talk about a versatile guy. He sells trucks in Vermont. He sells GMC and Ford trucks out of the same store. I've never heard of that before.
Well, either way, Steve, he's running a couple of Allisons just like his son in a tractor called the General.
In the heavier class, Brock, this tractor can be equipped with 3 Allison engines, making a real monster out of it. Now, we talked about a perfect run according to this team, and that is the front wheels just grazing the course the first 100 feet or so and then standing up. Let's see how well they execute here. And remember, Ann Heilman told us this is a horsepower track. Well, if any machine's got it, it's the General.
Here he comes. So far, a good pass. The wheels, front wheels coming off the ground, and he is going to do it. A full pull, a beautiful full pull by Gardner Stone in his twin-engine V12 turbocharged Allison tractor called the General. The 4th full pull of the day. Look at this move. As Steve said earlier, the front wheels stayed low, the front end just grazing the ground for the first part of the track, then lifting up about a foot off the ground as he heads toward the flags and a full pull. A beautiful drive by the man from Vermont that puts him in to the pull-off.
Well, Gardner, I think you're going to have to give the General another star for that one. A full pull, just beautiful.
Thank you very much. We enjoyed that one.
It got a little spectacular there at the end.
Well, we just had to go for it. I was on the brakes quite a bit, and it started veering, and I didn't get on them again because sometimes when that sled hits you and you're on the brakes, that kills it right there.
Any worry on your part getting it stopped without hitting that tractor that was parked there?
No, the guy on the sled is right on the ball, and you can shut him down pretty fast.
You know, there's enough heat coming off of these engines to fry eggs.
Beg pardon, I didn't...
There's enough heat coming off these engines. I can feel it on my back.
Oh, they're very, very hot, especially that alcohol fumes. It's terrible in your eyes.
You run any water in them at all?
No, they're completely dry. We're starting something new this year with the Allisons, and so far it's been working.
See you in that pull-up.
Thank you.
So Gardner Stone joins the elite group of full pullers here at Fort Recovery. We'll be back with more 7200 modified competition after this.
Ohio. I'm Steve Evans along with Brock Yates, and that is Ralph Banter positioning the weight transfer device they call the sled. And Brock, he appears to want to go a little bit to the left from some of the other competitors. What's he got, a golf club?
It looks like it, Steve. Maybe if they lose this one, he'll go play 18 for the rest of the afternoon. He's using that flag on the end of that club to, as you say, to move that sled back into position. Now, Ralph is probably going to use maybe a little bit different lane. This track has been torn up pretty heavily in the course of the competition, so maybe the Banter brothers have got a different line.
4 big block Chevrolets and the Banter orange tractor. They also have another machine called Banter brown, the only difference being the color. And Dave Banter, the most successful puller of all time. They had a little trouble earlier trying to get the engines to light, but all seems well now. You know, Brock, anytime you race on a dirt surface, be it with a motorcycle, a sprint car, or a high horsepower tractor, you've got to keep your eye on the weather because it affects the racetrack. Now, it was cloudy this morning. The track stayed nice and moist. The sun is out, temperature in the mid-90s. It could dry out.
It sure could. But I'll tell you what, if anybody can read one of these tracks, it's the Banter brothers. They've been in it for years. They were one of the first teams to come with the multi-engine drag racing type supercharged engines, stock block setups, as opposed to the old Allisons and turbines that were being used heretofore. Now, the Banter brothers setup, as you can see, is a pretty basic unit. 4 engines in line. Set to go. Here he comes.
So far, so good, Brock. He's got the wheel speed that he needs. Now, the front end needs to come up just a little bit, but it is not rising to the occasion. Even Ralph Banter may have missed the balance on this tractor a bit, and it's going to hurt them. They will not make the pull-off. A surprise.
It sure is a surprise, and they missed by a mile, actually, 282.7 feet for Dave Banter. Now, they've got another tractor, don't forget, but that is something of a shock here as we see the Banter brothers come up short. You saw the tractor come out showing all kinds of strength, but then slowly that weight moved forward on Heartbreaker 2 and dragged the tractor to a stop. The weight transfer never happened. The front wheels never lifted off the ground, and that truly cost Banter his full pull.
Well, David, all 4 motors sounded just fine, but it looked to be just maybe a little nose heavy, huh?
Yes, he's a little heavy in this class. That's the reason I don't run as good in this class, because I don't have the weight to play with, and if I could have got the nose up, I think she would have come on, but that heavy, it's hard to get her to move.
Well, it had plenty of power, though.
Yeah, I had the power, and I just had to get ready for that heavier class, I guess.
All right, now what did you learn in the orange tractor here you can apply to the brown one when you pull in this class?
Well, the brown one's a little bit lighter on the front. We've built it, that's our newer tractor, it's a little lighter. I think possibly I can get my front end up, maybe come a little harder.
Okay, we'll be watching.
Dave, of course, referring to the fact that he will compete in several other weight classes during the course of this event. All of these big modified tractors capable of doing that, including the Macon Bacon tractor being driven by Bruce Hutchison, one of the finest names in this sport, a man like John Heilman, who has been named both mechanic and puller of the year in his career.
And Brock, you were talking about the various classes. Well, Bruce Hutchison is the only man in pulling to ever win 3 national championships in a single year. In fact, he did it in 2 different years, winning in 3 different weight classifications. Here he has got 1, 2, 3, 4 motors in a tractor that is capable of hauling 5 in the heavier classes.
Well, this beautifully constructed tractor, heavily sponsored. Bruce Hutchison, a full-time professional who tours all over the country with a Macon Bacon Special, one of the really popular machines. As he gets ready to go, Hutchison getting ready to hook up and come to the line. Stevens with a man who's already made the pull-offs and has competed against Bruce for years.
Brock, I've got John Heilman down here with me, who, as you know, has already qualified for the pull-off. Bruce Hutchison is the next to hook. Tough customer.
Bruce got a real good shot at it. It's all going to be in the hole shot. The hole's getting bad down there. Banter didn't get out of the hole good. If Bruce gets out of the hole, he'll make it.
Now, a hole shot is a term you hear in drag racing where one driver gets ahead of the other, but in here, it has a little different meaning.
Yes, here we're not one right against the other, but it's the amount of time we spend getting that first 50 feet. If you time that first 50 feet, it's like having Garrett run against Coletta or somebody, you know. It's at that first 50 feet. You know, it's right down there.
How many tractors do you think will make the pull-off?
1 or 2 more.
Okay, let's watch.
Well, here's the prediction. 1 or 2 more. Let's see if Bruce Hutchison is the man. He looks like he's made a good hole shot, as John Hammond says. Oh, and suddenly the tractor brakes. An instant stop for Bruce Hutchison. Was seemingly running well, and then all of a sudden mechanical failure intervened. We're not sure what happened. Probably something in the drivetrain, because you can certainly lose 1 or more of those engines and keep going. Here you see it. Hutchison lifting those front wheels. Suddenly a hard bounce or 2, and the tractor rolls to a halt. A tough break for Bruce Hutchison, only 217 feet. Hardly enough to make him any money today.
Boy, that is a painful sound, even to guys like me just watching, Bruce, when those RPMs just go to the moon like that.
Yeah, Stephen, I think what happened is that the front 2 motors came loose some way, and then it detonated and blew the blower off the second motor.
Okay, so it actually lifted a blower up, and it might have even put a rod out, I'm afraid.
I don't know whether they put any rods out or not. I don't see any oil, but it blew the blower off the second motor, so it detonated. The front 2 motors came loose.
Well, I was down here with John Heilman, and he said he's coming out. He's going out the back door. He thought you were going to full pull it.
Well, it felt real good. Had a lot of good speed and had the front end about right, but the equipment didn't hold together.
Could be an expensive afternoon for you, huh?
Yeah, definitely.
Well, believe me, if you want to compete in one of these big multi-engine supercharged tractors, we got one suggestion: bring money. We'll be back with more of the NTPA Grand Nationals from Fort Recovery.
Indiana line, where the time zone also changes. And it's got all the basic things you need. Got the firehouse on the left, the church on the right, and it's got Ambassador Park, where tractor pulling is going on right now.
And right now, we've got a local star coming to the line, Steve. Milton Bergman from right here in Fort Recovery. Now, he's got a pair of V12 Allison aircraft engines. But you know what? Talk about money a little bit earlier as we see the leaderboard. Engler, Kay, Heilman, and Gardner Stone, all full pullers here among the top 5. Now, Milt has fuel injected only one of his 2 Allison engines. He flat says, I ran out of funds. I got to run one with carburetors and one with injection because the budget just won't stand a full conversion, Steve.
Yeah, these motors are pretty stupid, Brock. They really don't know whether they got carburetors or fuel injection. And this is kind of a low buck tractor if you want to compare it to the Make and Bacon special of Bruce Hutcherson and Heilman's and some of the others. But with some good driving and a right guess on the weight transfer, any machine is competitive in this sport.
It sure is, Steve, and that's one of the great attractions of this sport is that it still opens the door for mechanical ingenuity and driver skill. A lot of the other kinds of motorsports have become so sophisticated that there isn't much room for ideas and ingenuity to come into play. Here at tractor pulling, almost anything goes.
You know, and as far forward as that front engine is, I wonder if, like Dave Banter, if he can get the front end light enough for this particular track, Brock. I mean, the engine is out there. That's ballast as well as horsepower.
It sure is. And those big, long V12 engines are something of a handicap in terms of positioning them on the tractor. You really need a long wheelbase tractor because of the very length of those motors.
Well, even with all of the engine out there, Brock, he's still got 4 suitcase weights, and we talked about those earlier being 100 pounds apiece. Right now, you see the hand throttle there, and that is spring-loaded, so if anything should happen, it will automatically come back and close the throttles on the engine.
Right. So we've got 1 turbo V12 Allison and 1 centrifugally supercharged V12 on board Milt Bergman's tractor called Rambunctious. So we're having a little trouble getting things all fired up here. Could be a moment before Milt gets ready to go. Right now it sounds as if we got all 24 charged up here. Let's see what happens.
Okay, Heartbreaker 2 is ready. The big question is Milton Bergman. He is the only participant from right here in Fort Recovery. You see that right hand pushing that throttle. Now the throttle goes all the way forward. The front end just dancing very nicely. This is going to be a surprise here, Brock. The crowd is going to love it because he does it.
Yes, a full pull.